Good morning, dear students. This is Dr. Kiran Deshwal, Assistant Professor English. In this video lecture, I will teach you the sonnet The Sea and the Skylark, composed by G.M. Hopkins. Before starting the poem, let us have a brief introduction of the sonnet. As I told you earlier, a sonnet is a poem of 14 lines. This sonnet was written while Hopkins was in a 3-year course of study at the Jesuit Theologate St. Beonos in North Wales. He wrote many of his best known poems during this period. One autograph of this poem is dated Ryle, May 1877 and is entitled Walking by the Sea. So let me tell you that this sonnet was published in 1877 and Hopkins wrote this sonnet when he was living in Wales district of London. Suffering from fatigue, Hopkins is granted permission to spend some time at the seaside resort town of Ryle, 8 miles north of St. Beonos. When he was studying in St. Beonos College, he used to walk near the lake situated in the town of Ryle, and at that time he composed this sonnet. Hopkins writes later to his friend Robert Bridges. Robert Bridges, who is the patron and publisher of his works, he was one of the friend of Hopkins, and Hopkins' poetry published after his death in 1918. So he is known as a modern poet. 26 November 1882, he wrote to his friend Robert Bridges that this poem was written during his Wales days when he was fascinated with sing-hand sound arrangement within one line using stress, alliteration, and rhyme. So, this is the beauty of this sonnet. Hopkins arranges words in such a manner that he creates sound arrangement within one line using stress, alliteration, and rhyme. And we will see that when we will do the poem. Two sounds are entrenched in his thinking as he walks along the beach. On his right, the ebb and flow of the waves on the shore, and on his left, the unfurling song of the skylark. In the sestet, the last 6 lines of the sonnet. As I told you, that Petrarchan sonnet is divided into two parts, octave part and sestet part. In octave part, the poet describes the dilemma, and in the sestet part, the poet describes the solution. So the rhyme scheme will be A B B A A B B A. Hopkins reflects on what a shame it is that we have lost the ability to pay attention to and appreciate these sounds of creation, the sea and the skylark. Here are some things to think about reading regarding this poem. So, before reading this poem, you people should keep in mind these questions, and while reading that, you have to try to get out the answers of these questions. Look at a few lines and see if you can find examples of how the words in the line connect in the stress, alliteration, and rhyme. In short, can you find examples of singing hands? Check the terminology guide for help. Can you describe what he hears on his right hand in the first quatrain? How is the veering and bending of the moon connected to the tides? And can you describe what he hears on his left hand in the second quatrain? How can you imagine the song of the skylark as unfurling from a skein of fabric or thread? Do you hear a very modern message in the sestet, last 6 lines of the poem? How are the sounds of the sea and the skylark, the give and take, the ebb and flow reflected in the rhythm of the poem? So, we will try to get the answers of all these questions. This sonnet is an arrestingly discordant word doubling in the first line year and year, and the homonym of two noises too old is further complicated by an echo across the line break and entrench. Used as an intransitive verb, trench is dramatic, and the dash enhanced caesura seems to increase the depth of the cut incised. The sea itself makes a divided noise as a flood or a fall. With the heavy pebbly harshness of right tide ramps suggesting the incoming tide, and a gentler consonantal stand depicting the low lull of as the tide retreats. That the process is continuous and endless is beautifully conveyed in the present participle. Frequenting the sea and the moon are almost personified, but Hopkins challenges poetic convention as he flirts with it, weaving into two lines the oral complexity of a five-part fuse. Paired spondees help the internal rhyme sound out as the second quatrain begins. The lark's score in his song visualized as a skein which uncoils in a process that combines the restless and the repetitive in an endless intricate pattern, rewidened and new skinned. The moment of coiling and curling from a wild winch rill being probably a noun here, is both free and controlled, and the line 8 tells us not a note of this music is excessive or wasted. The description of the lark song in line 7 almost follows the pattern of the sin-handed Goroes cross in crypts of curl of wild winds rill. Perhaps the lark himself is singing a version of the repeated W's. Hopkins looks townwards in the sestet, condemning human intrusion with a mix of frothily light and greedily heavy adjectives, sallow, frail, sordid, turbid, and evoking a miniature industrial revolution in the hard, angry, reductive rhymes of our make and making break, our breaking. Generally, the rhythms are more regularly metrical than in the octet. The sea and the skylark embody nature's and God's moral challenge. They ring right out, the diminished man made present, right now coming back adverbially to contain both fully and correctively. Dust and slime represent spiritual degeneration of man. No doubt they were also the visible byproducts of the construction work that changed Ryle from centuries old finishing village to Victorian watering place. Even earlier in the sonnet, in words like trench and roar, these human efforts at certain are subliminally present, redundant in its conscious argument. They nonetheless add further elemental sound effects to the tidal and melodic singing hand of Hopkins' praise. Contrasted with man's last dust, man's first slime might be an image of regeneration rather than despair. So let us start our poem and we will have a line by line analysis. As I told you, this sonnet is written by Gerard Manley Hopkins, and Hopkins was born in 1844 and died in 1889. And this poem was published, written in 1877, and was published in his collection of sonnets entitled as Poems. And it was published by Robert Bridges, one of the friend of Hopkins. His works published in 1918, that's why he is known as a modern poet. Let us start The Sea and the Skylark. As the title suggests, in this sonnet, the poet will talk about the sea and the skylark. You need not to describe sea because every one of you know what a sea is. And let me tell in brief what a skylark is. A skylark is a small bird, you can say, find in England and is known for his melodious voice. एक छोटी सी चिड़िया होती है स्काईलार्क, जैसे यहाँ पे भारत में हम कोयल को बहुत ज़्यादा रिगार्ड करते हैं मीठी आवाज़ के लिए। लंदन में स्काईलार्क एक छोटी चिड़िया होती है जो बहुत ही अच्छा गाना गाती है, और जब भी कोई कवि आशावाद की जब बात करता है, ऑप्टिमिज्म की जब बात करता है, तो वो स्काईलार्क के गाने को रेफर करता है। On year and year, two noises, too old to end, trench, right, the tide that ramps against the shore, with a flood or a fall, low lull off, or all roar, frequenting there while moon shall veer and wane. This is the first stanza. So I will begin with the rhyme scheme. First of all, see the rhythm of the poem and the rhyme. As I told you, in Petrarchan sonnet, you have two octaves and assisted part. In octave part, we will have the rhyme scheme A B B A. And, shore, roar, wend. And is rhyming with wend, shore is rhyming with roar. So A, B, B, A. This is the rhyming scheme of the first stanza. And let me tell you the meanings of the words. Trench is the verb here, and it is used dramatically here. After trench we have rams. Rams means hits, टक्कर मारना. एंड फ्लड और अ फॉल. फ्लड जवार जो उठता है समुद्र में. जवार भाटा लहरों का उठना और लहरों का गिरना. लो लुलोफ और ऑल रोड. तो see how beautifully the poet has captured the voice of the sea. Frequenting means again and again. बार बार ये आवाज़ होती है. There while moon shall veer and wane. Veer and wane घटना और बढ़ना. चंद्रमा के घटने और बढ़ने के साथ साथ समुद्र में जवार भाटे में उतार चढ़ाव आता है. सो इट हैपन्स ड्यू टू ग्रेविटेशनल पावर ऑफ द अर्थ. पृथ्वी की गुरुत्वाकर्षण शक्ति के कारण ये होता है. ऑन ईयर एंड ईयर, इस कान में भी और इस कान में भी. टू नॉइजेस, दो आवाज़ें. टू ओल्ड टू एंड. टू ओल्ड टू एंड. हियर वी हैव पैराडॉक्स इन दिस लाइन. These voices are very old, but they will never end. They haven't ended till now. ना ये कभी ख़त्म हुई हैं और ना ये कभी ख़त्म होंगी. Because these two voices are permanent, eternal. शाश्वत हैं ये आवाज़ें, क्योंकि समुद्र जो है वो सदियों से है और समुद्र की आवाज़ भी जब से समुद्र है तभी से है. तो ये परमानेंट है, शाश्वत है. लहरों का गिरना और उठना शाश्वत है और स्काईलार्क का गाना भी परमानेंट है. सबसे बड़ी बात इन दोनों में ये है कि ये आवाज़ें कभी भी फेड नहीं होती, कभी पुरानी नहीं होती. हालांकि ये बहुत लंबे समय से हैं, पर इनकी ताजगी कभी ख़त्म नहीं होती. ये एवर फ्रेश हैं. So on year and year, two noises, too old to end, trench right, the tide that rams against the shore. Tide, जवार भाटा. that rams यानी हिट, टक्कर मारता है अगेंस्ट द शोर, किनारे पे. अगर आप लोगों ने समुद्र देखा होगा तो आप लोग देखेंगे कि लहरें जो हैं वो किनारे से टकराती हैं और वापस चली जाती हैं. और जब पानी किनारे से टकराता है, इफ़ इट्स अ रॉकी बीच, अगर ये चट्टानी किनारा है तो आवाज़ बहुत तेज़ होती है. लहरों के साथ छोटे छोटे पत्थर वहाँ पे समुद्र के उससे टकराते हैं किनारे से और बहुत ज़्यादा आवाज़ आती है. On year and year, two noises, too old to end, trench right, the tide that rams against the shore. So, before beginning, I questioned you people that what the poet hears on his right hand. So, write down that on the right hand, the poet hears the noise of the sea. The noise of the sea and the sea waves which hits at the shore. So, there is a tide in the sea and the waves hits the shore and they makes a noise with a flood or a fall. उतार चढ़ाव के साथ वो आवाज़ें करती हैं. लो लुल्लो फोल रोड, ये एक साउंड है. यहाँ ओनोमेटोपोइया है. ओनोमेटोपोइया में आपको एक ध्वनि का पता चलता है. तो समुद्र की लहरों का टकराना. फ्रिक्वेंटिंग, बार बार. अगेन एंड अगेन. देयर वाइल मून शैल वियर एंड बेंड, जब चंद्रमा की कलाओं में उतार चढ़ाव होता है गुरुत्वाकर्षण पावर के कारण, लहरें जो हैं उठती हैं और गिरती हैं और उनकी आवाज़ आती रहती है. सो ऑन द राइट हैंड इन द फर्स्ट स्टैंजा, द पोइट हियर्स द वॉइस ऑफ द सी एंड दिस वॉइस इज वेरी fresh and it comes again and again, frequenting, but it remains always fresh and it is from centuries. सदियों से है ये और शाश्वत है, पर ये ना कभी ख़त्म हुई है और ना ये कभी अपनी ताजगी को इसने खोया है। लेफ्ट हैंड, नाउ दिस इज द आंसर ऑफ योर सेकेंड क्वेश्चन, व्हाट द पोइट हियर्स एट द लेफ्ट हैंड ऑफ लैंड। ये लहरों का गिरना और उठना जमीन के ऊपर था, अब जमीन से ऊपर। लेफ्ट हैंड बाएं हाथ की तरफ, ऑफ लैंड जमीन से ऊपर। आई हियर द लार्क असेंड, असेंड यानी ऊपर चढ़ना, राइजिंग। मैं स्काई लार्क को सुनता हूँ। हिज रेस्टफ्रेश रिवाइडेंट न्यू स्किन स्कॉर, हिज रेस्टफ्रेश उसकी भी जो आवाज़ है वो बिल्कुल तरोताज़ा है। रिवाइडेंट जैसे उसने फिर से चाबी भर ली हो। न्यू स्किन स्कॉर और बिल्कुल न्यूली फैब्रिकेटेड है उसकी आवाज़। इन क्रिप्स ऑफ कर्ल ऑफ वाइल्ड विंड्स रिल एंड पॉर, सी द एलिट्रेशन, see the rhythm, rest, fresh, rewidened, new skinned. Everywhere there is stress, there is syllables which rhyme and which rings in our ears. In crypts of curl of, here we have alliteration. Wild winds rill, here again we have alliteration. See the repetition of W sound here. Wild winds rill. And pour and pelt music, again you have alliteration. So a number of alliteration are loaded in the single line. Pure and pelt music, संगीत को उंडेलता जाता है। प्योर उंडेलना, पेल्ट लपेटना। स्काईलार्क जो है म्यूजिक को उंडेलता जाता है, आसमान में फैलाता जाता है अपने ताजगी भरे संगीत को, गीत को। टिल नन इज टू स्पिल नॉर स्पेंड, इसका संगीत ये जितना फैलाएगा उतना फैलेगा, ये कभी ख़त्म नहीं होगा। नोर स्पेंड, स्पेंड यानी ख़त्म होना, कभी ख़त्म नहीं होगा, क्योंकि ये ताजगी भरा संगीत है और ये रेस्ट फ्रेश है। सो इन द सेकेंड स्टेंजा सी द राइम स्कीम, ascend, score, pour, spend. A, B, B, A. Again the rhyme scheme of the second stanza is A, B, B, A. And in the second stanza the poet describes the beauty of the voice of skylark. He says that the voice of the skylark is fresh, it gives you positivity, it pleases you, it's a pleasant voice. And on the left hand you hear the voice of the lark, on the right hand you hear the voice of the sea, and both these voices are eternal, are permanent, are soothing, they give us relaxation. But in the sestet part the poet grieves that how these two, ये दोनों आवाज़ें, shame this shallow and frail town, इस छिछले और कमज़ोर कस्बे को शर्मिंदा करती हैं। क्योंकि ये कस्बा जो है, दिस टाउन इज़ मैन मेड, ये मनुष्य द्वारा निर्मित है, और मनुष्य का निर्माण जो है समय के साथ नष्ट हो जाता है और उसमें कोई ताजगी नहीं रहती है, गंदा हो जाता है। हाउ रिंग राइट, अगेन वी हैव एलिट्रेशन, रिंग राइट आर आउटर सॉडिड टर्बिड टाइम, हम कैसे अपने गंदगी भरे समय को बिता रहे हैं। Being pure, we call ourselves sacred and pure, but we are not. We lives fried and cared for crown because we just care for materialism, for crown. We just care to gain more. We don't care to look at the earth, to look at the beauty of the earth. Have lost that cheer and charm of earth's past prime. Earth, which was beautiful once, has lost its charm, has lost its cheer, because man exploits Earth, Mother Earth too much for its selfishness. Our make and making break, again we have alliteration. हमारे निर्माण टूट रहे हैं और टूट जाएंगे। Our make and making break and break are breaking down. To man's last dust, और टूट फूट के नष्ट होके वो वापस मिट्टी में मिल रहे हैं। To man's last dust, here we have biblical reference. In Bible it is said that after that man and man's making converts into dust, into soil, सब मिट्टी में मिल जाता है आखिर में। Drain fast towards man first slime, and it is said that man was created from slime, and after that man will again merge into that slime. So we are draining fast, हम बहुत तीव्र गति से अपने पतन की तरफ जा रहे हैं, because uh, we are just getting and spending, and there is no freshness in our deeds. So Hopkins grieves over the condition of man in this sonnet, and in this sonnet we have biblical reference also. Please go through it, and I hope you have understand it. Thanks for watching.